environment, or we're getting cold. So what's the pathology, or what's the problem when these start to become overwhelmed? So I overwhelm those compensatory mechanisms. What's going to happen to my body? Yeah, it's going to get cold. And eventually we're going to enter into hypothermia, right? So we have the 3 stages of hypothermia. So we have...
Dale, do you mind if I actually record it?
I don't know.
Okay. I figure I'm like, I should probably actually ask him.
The mild, moderate, severe. At what temperatures do we see these occurring?
35.
Yeah, so as soon as we get under 36, we're looking at really about 34 to 36 for mild hypothermia, so it doesn't take much to get there. For moderate, really we're looking at, depends on what you read. So some things will say 30 to 34, 32 to 34. Really doesn't matter, we're more concerned about the signs and symptoms that we're going to see. So 32 degrees to 34 degrees is our moderate, and then really anything under 32 degrees Celsius becomes severe. And when we start entering things like 31, 30 degrees Celsius, we start to see really significant physiological changes that are eventually going to kill this person. So in terms of hypothermia, what's the biggest risk to this patient? How are they going to die?
Yeah.
Nope. So actually very rare. So they can enter VF and VTAC. The most common arrhythmia and cardiac arrest is actually PA or systolic. But you can. So VF and VTAC can happen, but it's in rare occasions. Yeah, so usually it's CNS depression. So the number one cause of cardiac arrest in these patients with a major life threat is CNS depression. So when we think about what's happening is we have some fairly significant effects on the brain in hypothermia. We draw a big neuron. What types of things are going to happen during hypothermia to cause CNS depression? Yeah, so one of the things that happens is we actually just slow electrical conductivity. Or basically the speed in which we have conduction through the neurons becomes decreased. So one of the things that happens is we have slowing of conduction velocity. We see a decrease in conduction velocity, which is really just going to slow down impulses and make it harder for the body to regulate its function. What do you think is going to happen to our cerebral blood flow when we start developing hypothermia? Do things speed up or slow down when I get super cold? So what's going to happen to my metabolism in my brain? It starts slowing down. If you think about any of those times you hear about a 6-year-old is lost in frigid cold water, survives after 7 hours of being in the water. It's why, right? Because their brain is preserved because they have such low metabolic demands. So another thing that we're going to see is just basically metabolism in the neuron is decreased. So we see a decrease in metabolism or a decreased metabolic rate in the brain. Or it's basically not making or creating energy at the speed that it would be if it wasn't hypothermic. So, if I have a decrease in my metabolic rate, what's going to happen to the amount of blood flow I need? Increase? Yeah, decrease, right? If I'm not working as fast, I don't need to give as much blood and nutrients and oxygen to the brain. So what we end up seeing is a decrease in cerebral blood flow. The cerebral blood flow starts to shut down, and we see cerebral vasoconstriction, and a decrease in cerebral blood flow. So as a result, those are the 3 things that are going to lead to the CNS depression or lead to this patient starting to enter into the mild, moderate, and then severe stages of hypothermia. And that's going to be the ultimate life threat. This is the thing that kills them the quickest, is this CNS depression. So what types of things are we going to see as the brain starts slowing down? Or what types of things are we going to see at that moderate or that mild stage of hypothermia?
Lethargy.
Yep, so you start seeing lethargy. What else?
Excuse me, thank you.
Yeah.
Bradycardias.
So we're just talking purely CNS right now. So lethargy, confusion. What else? So where people start getting ataxic, or they start that kind of drunk walk, or their gait becomes impaired. So they, I don't know if you guys have been it. If you think of it, last time you're outside and it's really cold and you're trying to like use your iPhone or something, and it literally feels like your hand is moving slow, because you have a small degree of hypothermia. Things are just not moving as quickly as they would be. So you start to see things like ataxia developing as well. So lethargy, confusion, ataxia, this is where people can actually even get a small degree of amnesia. So you might start seeing them like, oh, I can't remember how I got here. I don't know how long I've been inside. So we get amnesic effects. What do we start seeing as we progress further into moderate stages? Would they be shivering here?
No. Slightly, yes.
Yeah, so mild stages we generally still see shivering. So mild hypothermia we still see the person shivering and trying to produce heat. So as we head towards moderate hypothermia, what types of things do you think we're going to see? Yep, so the patient becomes increasingly more confused. We start to see an alteration in their LOA. This is where we start to lose shivering. So this is where the patient actually might not be shivering anymore. Usually around 33 to 30 is where we see the loss of shivering. So if they're not shivering, it just indicates the patient is either entering late moderate or severe hypothermia. It just gives us an idea of how sick they actually are. So we see altered LOA, we start to see a loss of shivering. Shivering decreases. Part of that is because we have these things happening, right? So we have CNS suppression, so it's just harder to send the signals that need to be sent to cause shivering. Another part of it, as we start entering a cooler stage, we start entering really under this 34 degrees, your synovial fluid starts to thicken. So it starts to get really stiff, and it's just harder to shiver because the joints become stiffer. As we enter into severe hypothermia, you can actually see people that look rigged that are actually just hypothermic because their synovial fluid is frozen. So their joints are literally just frozen in place. Those are some of the things that we can see at the moderate stage. As shivering starts to decrease, we might see stiff joints. What if people start doing this really weird when they start entering later stages of hypothermia?
They take their clothes off because they get hot.
Yeah, so this is where you get the paradoxical undressing. They're not really sure why it actually happens, but this is where you start people taking off their clothes. So paradoxical undressing. And again, we're going to have the further of that ataxia. The patient may have dysarthria, slurred speech. So all the types of things related to that CNS suppression or the CNS function getting worse. And then in severe hypothermia, the patient can enter what? Yeah, coma. So coma, severely altered LOA.
When is it when they lose like the vasoconstriction part?
So it really depends. Usually vasoconstriction is lost when they become acidotic. So once they become severely acidotic, or in severe hypothermia, we start to see loss of vegetative function. Below 27 degrees, your EEG just becomes flat, so you have no brain activity whatsoever. So you see the same thing. As soon as I lose that ability of the brain to function whatsoever, I don't have any neuronal transmission, all of your body systems will just shut down. Just be dead, right? So severely altered LOA, and this is where we start to see loss of vegetative function. And that's where we lose that control over respiration, control of vasomotor tone, loss of really any reflexes. The patient may have areflexia, or they may actually have just fixed and dilated pupils. Pupil response. Does that make sense? So that's your primary life threat, and you guys will see that on an exam somewhere. You have a hypothermic patient that is probably in a severe hypothermia. Say what stage of hypothermia is the patient in, what's the primary life threat associated with that condition, and in the case of hypothermia, this is what it is. It's the CNS depression that's going to lead to death. Basically the answer for everything, right? Major life threat? CNS. So that's what we're seeing in terms of the brain. Does that make sense? Fine. So So the big thing you have to take away from that is what's happening in the brain. So decreased metabolism, conduction velocity is decreasing, and we actually see a reduction in cerebral blood flow. And all of those things are just ending up in the patient having CNS depression or decreased function of the central nervous system. Any questions about that part? So, next thing we'll talk about is